And we're back.
Hello, everybody. I'm Kevin.
I'm Brian.
And we're the horror guys here to talk about horror movies and shorts and stuff.
2 shorts, 4 full-length horror movies.
Well, it's one sort of a documentary.
And 2 really hot horror host guys.
That's right. I did my thumbnail.
We're going to bring them in next week. All right, well, we're looking at episode 77. So we've been doing this a while.
Yeah, and 77 is a lucky number. 2 sevens, 777 is even luckier, but, we'll do. What? I'm jiggling the table, aren't I?
We're shaking the camera. We're terrible people.
Yeah, but if you're just listening, you won't know that we're shaking the camera.
And he says that because there is just an
audio
audio-only podcast that you can get through Spotify or Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts.
Wherever fine podcasts are sold.
All the usual places. Just type in The Horror Guys, and we will be there. Put in the in there. Mm-hmm. Or you don't put the in there. I never remember. Go to our website, horrorguys.com, and follow the link. Of course, we also have our show on YouTube, which is just us talking for the most part. Same thing as in the audio, only you can see our astounding faces.
And an amazing drop. And my bony hand that I wave all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And rubber ducks.
Yeah.
And baseballs. And all the weird props. Okay. And of course, we do have horrorguys.com that has all the text of our reviews on there. You can go there anytime during the week and read all the stuff that we talk about. You can leave comments and contact us there too. And we don't normally talk about all this stuff in the beginning of the show. We usually get straight to the movies. And as a reminder, most of our reviews are spoilery. So
Kinda, yeah.
So, yeah.
It varies.
Yeah.
Sometimes we go easy on you, but
if in doubt, you can go to the website.
If it's an old movie that's been around for decades, we're a lot more likely to spoil it than something new and fresh.
If you don't know how Creature from the Black Lagoon ends, you probably ought to watch it.
You should watch it by now, yes.
Yeah.
It's been decades.
And if the spoilers really bother you, you can go to horrorguys.com. There's a section for synopsis where the entire outline of the movie's there. And at the bottom is a commentary, which is usually spoiler-free. So you can find out if a movie stinks or not that way. Mm-hmm. Without hearing the whole story.
Yeah.
But we're going to talk about...
We're going to tell you the whole story today.
What are we going to talk about this week?
We're going to talk about The Creature from the Black... We're going to talk about The Creature from the Black Lagoon from 1954.
And we're going to have a lunch break.
Classic horror
Talk
movie.
about Taste the Blood of Dracula from 70.
Christopher Lee is back again.
Yeah. And then we could watch a documentary.
Horror Noir, A History of Black Horror.
Yeah, we talked about this like a year ago when they announced they were going to release it, and we finally got around to watching it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're going to have a newish movie, 2019's In Fabric.
Very British.
Very
British. Yes.
And 2 shorts.
British. Yep.
One called Bill, about a woman who does something she shouldn't. Mm-hmm. And The Telltale Heart from Edgar Allan Poe. You know how that story goes.
Classic.
But we got a really good version of that for you.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
So let's talk about these things, huh?
What do you want to talk about first?
We should talk about The Creature from the Black Lagoon, I think, first.
Dun dun dun!
Yeah,
dun dun dun!
It did that a lot, yeah.
It did.
Universal classic creature.
Yeah, with the horns.
With the first time the creature has appeared.
Yeah.
Numerous movies where he did, but this is his first.
Now, of all the Universal horror films, you got Dracula from 1931, Frankenstein from 1931, The Phantom of the Opera from 1923, I think, The Werewolf from 1941.
And then boom.
And then Bride of Frankenstein from 1935. So all of those were in the 20s and the 30s. They've been around a long time by this point. Mm-hmm. This is 1954.
And a new classic was born.
Yeah. So this is the newest of their horror icons, which they have never tried to really remake. There's 2 sequels, but you got The Mummy from a couple years ago, many Frankenstein iterations.
The Invisible Man.
Just came out this year. Dracula's done every few years.
Recently done, in modern times. Yeah, haven't redone a creature yet.
No, not yet.
I bet they will.
The Shape of Water kind of counts.
No, not really. We planted the idea, now they're probably gonna.
I'd watch it.
Yeah, I would.
I don't know what they do with it to update it. Color maybe instead of black and white. But So did you like it?
I did. Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually better than I remembered.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's different than I remembered.
And kind of grim and horrifying and scary, these people trapped in this horrific creature that's picking them off one at a time, and there's not seems to be whatever they try to do, the creature flaunts their foils their plan, and
He knows.
yeah, it's a smart. Yeah, I hadn't seen this one before. I'd seen one of the sequels a long time ago, and
Sequels are not as good.
I didn't realize how smart the creature was and how crafty. And not just an animal. He's very intelligent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, nobody ever talks about it, but there has to be more than one.
Yeah, animals.
In the beginning, they
creatures
find a
don't come from
fossilized
void.
version of
Yeah.
it, and then he's there. Is he the last one of his kind?
It's the only one we see.
No evidence of that.
Yeah, only one we see.
There's got to be a Mrs. Creature out there somewhere.
And baby creatures, and yeah.
Yeah.
They tend to do that in movies a lot, though, where there'll be, it's a monster. Well, if it's a natural creature like this one is, they've proven, it's a fossilized record that it's been around for a long time. They don't appear in a vacuum.
Radioactive
They have
mutants.
parents.
Radioactive mutants come from nowhere.
Yeah, they're like a one-shot.
Accidents of mad scientists come from nowhere. This thing evolved
Creatures of
there. That's
nature.
actually part of the story.
Yeah, and lives in the Amazon as
Yeah. There's a whole race of these guys somewhere.
Yeah.
Might be a small group, but there's more than one.
Yeah.
Okay, so 1954, it's the newest of the real classic monsters, directed by Jack Arnold, written by Harry Essex and Arthur A. Rosencredit, stars Richard Carlson, Julia Adams, and Richard Denning, hour and 19 minutes. And like all these Universal horror films, it's only an hour and 19 minutes. It's short, but it never drags, and a lot goes on.
Yeah, it does.
We've watched so many movies
steady.
in the past few weeks that are like an hour and a half, and they seem like 3 hours. They just drag.
This one really moves nicely.
One thing after another. So how do you think this one compares to the other big classics? Wolfman, Frankenstein, Dracula.
I was way more entertained.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a little more modern.
I thought it was most entertaining of all the Universals so far. I think it's overall.
Okay.
The others are classic, and I enjoy them, but this one's the winner in my book.
All right. Well, in the beginning, and I mean that quite literally, in the beginning, we see the Big Bang and the creation of the Earth, followed by evolution. Or God made the Earth.
Yeah, I like how they kind of mash up creationism and evolutionism.
Yeah, they tell us both stories, so they've got it covered.
So they got it covered for everybody.
Yeah, there's an expedition to learn the extent of evolution or creation, whatever.
Yeah.
An archaeologist named Carl Maya finds a fossilized claw embedded in rock, and the camera turns, and we see that same claw rise up out of the water. This is not an extinct species after all. And Carl goes back to civilization to report his findings. Carl then visits David and Kay, two experts on marine life that we are specifically told 3 or 4 times are not married but are dating. He shows them the fossil, and they want to go see the dig too.
Yeah.
They organize a new expedition to find the creature's whole skeleton,
And they bring along another guy, too.
who finds up the other guy's actually in charge of the expedition, and we're not quite sure why they invited him to be their boss. But,
Well, and
maybe he had the money.
Yeah, and I mean, he was kind of a red shirt along, too. It's kind of how it felt.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's 2 other scientists, the red shirt guy and the leader guy.
Yeah.
There's a couple different ones, which we'll get to in a minute. But yeah, you can tell which one's wearing the red shirt, even though it's black and white.
Yeah.
Okay, so before they can actually get down there to the Amazon, the actual living creature, not a skeleton, kills the people camped at the site to guard the fossil.
Oops.
So, oops.
Yeah. So he's a brutal creature. Yeah, murdering.
Yeah, he's a killer.
He's a pretty decent body count in this. Yeah, that he kills them.
So the expedition then steams up the Amazon. They arrive to find the camp dead. They start their search for the fossil, and this involves lots of scuba scenes.
There is lots of scuba. And
There's a
swimming
lot
this.
in this.
Yeah.
We soon see that the creature is nearby and is watching them from under the water. One of the scientists, the leader with the money, is Mark Williams. He's very jealous of David, and he kind of wants the girl too. And he's a jerk.
Yeah, kind of.
You know where this is going by the end.
And speaking of scuba, I was looking at the trivia and stuff about how they did the creature suit. He's actually wearing scuba under the creature suit.
Oh, he is? Okay.
Yeah, for his underwater scenes, the actor was wearing scuba as part of the and that's why he's got such a big hump fin on the back. It's hiding the tank.
Well, I didn't know when he was on being filmed, they made him hold his breath and stuff, so the bubbles weren't coming out.
Yeah.
In this movie, in the second and the third movie, they didn't care so much, and you could see the bubbles coming out of the creature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can a little bit here sometimes.
I'm sure it happens, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Well, the men all go to test their sample on the ship, while Kay gets bored and goes for a swim, all alone in the Amazon. Who does that?
And who would think that was a good idea to do that in the Amazon?
Even without the creature, you got problems.
You got all kinds of creatures and creepy crawlies, and
yeah.
let's just go for a swim in this lagoon
With no one watching, no one around.
Ew.
What could happen?
Yeah.
Well, the Gill Man watches, and he likes what he sees.
Yeah,
He's a little bit of a pervy creature.
He likes the girl. Mm-hmm.
He chases her back to the boat and accidentally gets caught in the net. It claws its way out of the net before anybody gets a chance to see it. They do find a fingernail or a claw that matches the fossil.
Yep.
Could that thing be
Could
alive?
it be alive? Why, yes.
Well, Mark's eyes bug out, boing, and he loads his harpoon gun, and David accuses him of wanting a trophy. Yeah, I can't really blame him.
Mm-hmm. Well, to profit off it and make
Yeah.
money off it rather than the scientific end of things.
Wouldn't you want to catch it, though? I mean, it is a major thing.
Yeah.
I'd rather catch it alive than kill it, but yeah, I'd want one if I was in their position.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, they spot the creature and pursue him. They do shoot him in the back, but he escapes into a deep
And
cave.
he's tough.
He gets shot a couple of times.
He gets shot and set on fire and drugged and,
Yeah, he's
concussed. And, he's a tough critter.
While they develop the photos, the Gill Man kills he sneaks back on the boat and kills one of the crew. That night, they all see him for real. They chase him and finally capture him in a net, and he soon ends up caged. He nearly instantly escapes, but he ends up getting set on fire and jumping overboard.
Fire
Somebody
bad.
throws a lantern at him. Mm-hmm. Well, the next day, they try to leave on the ship because they've already lost at least one crewman.
Yeah, and they're saying, let's get a bigger boat.
Yeah. We need a bigger boat. Yes, first time that was said.
Yeah.
But the Gill Man has dammed the river up. They can't leave.
Uh-huh.
While they try to unblock the boat, Mark and David once again do underwater battle with the creature, and this time Mark is killed, bothering pretty much no one. The Gill Man then grabs Kay, jumps in the water, and carries her to his lair, which is really just off screen somewhere behind some rocks. It's like there's a tunnel there or something. Mm-hmm. And then the captain and Dr. Carl shoot it repeatedly, and it walks back into the river and vanishes. We see it sinking to the bottom, apparently dead. So he got a harpoon in his back.
Yeah.
He got a harpoon in his front, and then he got shot 5 or 6 times with regular bullets.
And set on fire in between.
And set on fire, and drugged.
Yeah.
And we know he comes back for a sequel.
Back for a couple sequels, yeah.
At this point, we could pretend he was dead, though.
Yeah.
All right, so the introduction is interesting. Evolution, and where this creature came from, is a crucial point of the plot, and one of the motivations is explained in the beginning. One of the scientists says, when man goes into space, we'll need to be able to adapt and evolve to the environment, he says. And yet, they still had the need to put in some creationist text in the intro as well. Because evolution is just a theory. It's just a theory.
Right.
Yeah. Send your emails to someone else on that one. Not even him. Okay, so scuba had only been invented about 10 years prior to the film.
By Jacques Cousteau and his colleague.
Yeah, which I didn't know he invented it. I just thought that we had the good TV shows in the 70s.
I had known that, yeah. They came up with it.
Okay.
He and another guy worked on it together.
Yeah. And the underwater filming must have been the closest thing Hollywood could come to exploring an alien world.
And really good underwater photography. A lot of nice and clear and lots of it.
I'm surprised considering how recent the technology was and how old this is that it was so good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The underwater footage is really clear. It all looks good, and there's a lot of it. Mm-hmm. It's surprisingly good considering how recent the technology was at the time. The acting is fine, the camera work is awesome, and the story is good. The music, on the other hand, is really repetitious, especially the horns that play the same 4 notes every time the creature comes on screen. Wah, wah, ba, wah! Whenever the creature makes an appearance. Wah, wah, ba, wah! that sound gets old really fast. And it's the same every time.
Yeah.
But this is a classic for a reason. And, I wonder over the decades, 50, 60, 70 years that this came out, how many people have been afraid to swim in rivers and lakes to this day because of this film.
Because of the creature, yeah.
I'll bet a lot.
Uh-huh, yeah.
All right, are you thirsty?
Thirsty. Oh, for blood.
Let's taste the blood of Dracula. Right here. Salty.
You know what? I misspoke on the scuba. This one, he did not have a scuba tank.
Yeah, he did in the others.
In subsequent films, he did.
I'm sure he had one off screen.
I was mistaken. Yeah.
Okay. So, you tell me the creature wasn't real?
No, wasn't real. Yeah.
I'm shocked.
Yeah.
And
so, Taste the Blood of Dracula.
Yeah, from 1970. Directed by Peter Sasti, written by Anthony Hines, as John Elder. John Elder gets credit for a lot of these scripts, and it's really Anthony Hines as a pseudonym. I'd love to know what the story is on that. If you know, send me an email or a comment or something. Let me know what's up with the Anthony Hines / John Elder name. And this one stars Christopher Lee, Jeffrey Keane, and Gwen Waterford. Hour and 31 minutes. And Kevin's opinion is...
It was good. I liked it.
In depth.
Yes,
hard hitting.
In depth review. I liked it.
Yes.
All in all, yes.
Cut. My mouth is falling apart.
Okay.
Always do that before the show. Uncut. Okay, so you liked it then?
I did, yes. Yeah.
It's kind of a lot like the other Dracula films. It doesn't have a lot to stand out, but if you like it, you like it. There's nothing wrong with it either.
Well, and again, Dracula wakes up in a bad mood. And again, he goes after the people who wronged him or feels like, they offended him. And if he would just let these things go and just go on and do his thing, he'd be fine. He wouldn't keep getting killed in these movies. No, I must have revenge. Yeah. I am angry at these people who, for whatever reason,
He's evil. He's not famous for common sense.
Yeah.
Well, we start out with Weller, a traveling salesman who is thrown from a carriage near Carlsberg, and it's kind of a funny scene way he gets thrown out. Oh yeah, they got the guy in there. He's selling snow globes.
Yeah,
and this man and his very strange son are in the cabin with him. And
the son is not right.
Would you like to buy a snow globe? And the man's like, no. And the son says, Give.
Gimme.
And there's a little bit of back and forth, and sooner or later the son throws the salesman out on the street, and he got his snow globe.
Yeah, he did.
Well, Weller wakes up at night, get knocked out by thrown out of the moving carriage, and hears some crazy screaming. He starts to run, and he sees Dracula being impaled by the cross at the end of the previous film, which
Takes off right where the other one left off.
Dracula has risen from the grave film. He gets impaled on a cross, and we see that right here. In an instant, there's nothing left of Dracula but a cape and a red puddle, and a medallion.
And his ring.
And his ring, yes. And the salesman quickly grabs that stuff up, and then credits roll.
Scoops up some of the powder.
So we got a lot of action right away.
Yeah.
Well, we then cut to a couple of young people where Alice flirts with Paul at church, and then her father, grumpy old William, punishes her for it when they get home. William goes out with his 3 friends to the whorehouse, which is their usual entertainment for the end of the month.
Well, not specifically that. This is a club where the 3 of them get together for experiences. They've been there clearly before.
Yes.
But they do other things. They do drugs and exotic weird stuff, and
they're experience seekers.
They're looking for experience secretly. This is their secret life. Every month they get together and go do something wild.
Otherwise, they are upstanding leaders of the community,
and kind of hypocritical. I mean, he's really he's really uptight and stringent with his daughter and his wife, and then he goes out and gets wild with his
really
friends.
Wild.
Yeah.
Okay, so they watch dancing girls. They've got snake dance. What is the deal with snake dancing girls in Hammer
It's
films?
exotic, you know.
Somebody liked the snakes in that.
Somebody thought that was a good idea, yeah.
And they each have a girl of their own just to play with. Old Man William is a grouch even during playtime, but his friends seem much more into all of it.
Well, he's kind of cynical and jaded, and it's like, oh, it's another dancing girl. Like, oh, it's another snake, charmer, and oh, it's another nude boobies, and
He's seen too
he's
much.
seen it all, and he's
Yeah.
just tired of it. He wants new experiences, something new, damn it. And he gets his wish.
He gets it. Well, Lord Courtly's son barges into the room, which kind of puts them off the fun. And this guy's famous for having done a black mass sometime in the past, and he is rumored to be possessed by the devil. William then chases after Courtly on his way out and invites him to dinner. He's just too interesting to pass up. As dinner progresses, it turns out the three old men are bored experience seekers looking to try out this satanic thing for fun. They go to see Weller and demand to buy the item. Weller shows them the medallion as well as a jar full of dried blood.
And the ring.
Yeah. The three chip in and buy it for Courtly, who says he knows how to use it.
And it's a fortune that the guy wants
a lot
for
of
it.
money, yeah.
They pool, but they do it.
Yeah, I'd get thrown out of a carriage for that kind of money. Well, they all make the trip to Dracula's deserted castle. The castle is all set up for a ritual, and Courtly tells the three men what to do. Courtly then hands each of them a goblet, and then he starts the ritual using the dried up blood of Dracula.
Well, he reconstitutes it, so it's...
I get into that part.
Oh,
He's got
okay.
the dried powder.
Oh, yes.
A little bit.
Starts with the dried powder.
Yeah.
Yes, a little bit for each of them.
Like a sweet and low packet full of dried blood in each little goblet.
Yummy.
Then he cuts his own hand and drops a couple drops of his own blood into each goblet, and then each of the goblets expands and fills with blood. It's like one of those little pills you put in and it becomes a dinosaur or something.
Only foamy liquid.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So then they drink the blood of Dracula.
They taste the blood of Dracula. Well, actually, only one of them do.
You're right, they taste it.
But what would have happened if all four of them had?
I don't know, it worked just fine the way it did.
Yeah, but Dracula... Well, you're getting to that, but
Yeah.
how things happened. The one guy drank it. The other three crapped out and couldn't do it.
Cortland drinks it and the others get afraid and they get angry. They think they've been gypped and they beat the crap out of Cortland who dies.
Yeah, but he dies from the blood, not from their beating.
Yeah, it's
that
kind of
was my take
arguable at this point.
Well, that was my take on it.
Okay.
The blood was choking him and poisoning him, and then he keels over.
So the three old men run home, but then dead Cortland laying on the ground, he morphs into Dracula. And Dracula stands up and said, "They destroyed my servant. They will be destroyed," he says. And
Because Dracula
Cortland turned into Dracula.
Possessed Cortland's body and morphed into him. But what if they all had drank it?
Be like mini Draculas running around?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
They could do a little dance when people come in.
There'd be four little Draculas.
They'd probably just be followers, probably. Zombified.
Yeah, probably still be just be Cortland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then Alice and Paul talk later on. Their fathers have both been acting strangely for the past few days.
Yeah, with all the, blood and dead
Guilt over killing Cortland.
Dead guy, and which they may or may not have killed. They certainly contributed.
Well, they know he's dead. They think they killed him.
They freaked out and certainly beat him severely. But
whether they did or not, they think they did.
Yeah, my take on it was the actual blood that killed him, though.
Yeah, whatever.
But whatever.
He's dead.
He did.
He's dead. They think they did it.
Yeah.
There's some drama between the teenagers, and then the two of them sneak out to go to a party. Alice then runs into Dracula waiting outside, and he hypnotizes her with his red eyes.
Because that's what Dracula does.
She then hits William with a shovel. Whack! The first, states Dracula. Alice tricks her friend Lucy into getting into the carriage, which delivers them both to Dracula's crypt. "Lucy," says Dracula.
You get the impression he doesn't have a lot of dialogue in this movie.
And then he's got her too.
Yeah.
Mr. Secker and Mr. Paxton, a couple of the two other men, go back to the castle and find that Courtly's body is gone. But they do find Lucy in a tomb. Secker knows about these things, and he explains about staking Lucy, but Paxton shoots him instead and waits for Lucy to wake up, Lucy's Paxton's daughter. Mm-hmm. That goes about as well as expected. They end up staking him. Yeah, that's not the way that was supposed to go. The second, says Dracula.
See, he's got all of Dracula's dialogue memorized.
Secker then goes back into the castle and finds the tomb empty. Lucy bites Secker's son named Jeremy, who then kills his own father. The third, groans Dracula. His revenge is complete, so Dracula drains Lucy. He prepares to do the same to Alice. Baka baka bak!
Nope. But
He hears the cock crowing and he hurries home instead.
Enough for tonight.
Baka baka bak. I think that may be the lamest rooster
was.
crowing ever. Paul reads Secker's notes and understands everything. He heads up to the castle the next morning. He hears some strange screaming outside, and suddenly it's nighttime. Don't know what's up with that. He confronts Dracula with a strangely luminescent cross. Maybe it's just reflection, but it looks like it's lit up.
It's reflection, yeah.
I have no further use for you, Dracula tells Alice. Dracula is trapped inside due to the crosses on the door, so he throws stuff at them. Like he's got a keg of something and he throws it down and misses completely, and rocks and stones and tapestries and whatever he can lay his hand. It ain't much. Well, Paul then starts praying, and Dracula freaks out. He falls under the stone altar and turns back to dust and the medallion and the ring and stuff. Because Paul prayed in front of him.
Well, altar, sacred spot. He fell on the sacred altar, and I think that's what did him in. That's worse than a cross.
All right.
That was my take on that.
Well, suddenly Alice is
Anyway,
freed and cured, and the two
dusted.
of them live happily ever after at the end.
He's dust, and we'll never see Dracula again.
Never see Dracula again.
No.
And like you said, if Dracula would just stay home and kill the occasional traveler, he'd be much happier.
Yeah.
Every time he wakes up, he's obsessed with revenge over something, and the revenge always goes badly. He just needs a little anger management classes to settle down some.
Yeah.
He's supposed to be smart. It drags a little bit in the middle, and the teen lovers are boring. Really boring.
Kinda.
The sets are excellent, the plot is interesting, and the setup for the revival of Dracula all makes a lot of sense, expanding on the previous film's resolution. I liked the first half. Once Dracula actually comes back, it kind of gets a little by the book. And Christopher Lee could not have asked for an easier. He didn't want to come back and do Dracula.
And they said,
I can't imagine
and then
why
he said,
not.
how much money you want to give me just to say 5 lines?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have just literally transcribed every single line of dialogue in this review.
He shows up and looks good.
The first, the second, the third. Lucy, you killed my servant, I will kill you. And maybe I missed a line somewhere in there, but
I have no more use
it.
for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long do you think it took Christopher Lee to remember those lines?
15 minutes or so.
Visually, he's in it quite a bit.
Yes.
But
And
the lines... Well, it beats that other movie that he did a few Draculas ago where he didn't speak at all.
Yeah, all he did was growl.
Yeah, he's definitely the most animalistic of the Draculas. He doesn't say much.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, before we go on, I want to point out a few things.
What you got there?
I've got Tales to Make You Shiver, Book 1.
Well, it's
and
volumes
Book 2.
1 and 2.
Volume 1 and 2.
See, I especially like number 2 because I was part of that one.
Yeah. I wrote all of number 1 and part of number 2. Kevin wrote, he joined in there, and
It was a mutual effort on number 2.
you can tell by these wonderful pictures of me
And that one's got
and a wonderful picture
both of us.
both of us. So, yeah. So, yeah, these are both good. Pick these up at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kobo,
Short stories. Short horror
paperback
stories.
or ebooks.
Yeah.
All right. And, they're all very short stories, a couple of pages each. They are short, though, which is good.
Yeah.
Yeah. You see any shorts this week?
Yeah. Saw one called Bill and also saw another one, too.
Yeah, let's talk about Bill first. It was short.
Okay.
It's called Bill, Bill, from 2020. Probably have a hard time finding that one online, but if you just go to horrorguys.com or click in the show notes, we'll have a link for you there. And it's written and directed by Dan Gitcham and Sophie Mayer. Stars Roxana Vilk, Chris Bianchi, Hugo Stanberry, and like I said, link in the show notes. Did you like it?
I give it a weak thumbs up. This one didn't didn't grab me.
It's fine. It looks good.
It's fine.
It's got
Yes,
an
that's a good way
interesting
to put
little
it.
scene to it, but it's only 3 minutes.
I didn't hate it. Yeah, I think that was part of the problem. It was too short.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, and I didn't dislike it, but
To call it a short film might be stretching it. It's more like an extended scene.
yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, this woman looks at the photo and says, I really want this to work. And then she drinks something nasty from a wine glass. Maybe the blood of Dracula. We don't know.
She tasted it.
Yeah. But Bill, then the man on the photo, suddenly winks at her in the picture.
Yeah,
you see the picture
that was a
moving.
neat effect.
The picture starts doing its thing. You know, it's one of those things when she looks away and looks back and the picture is different. It's not exactly animated, but the picture's changing.
Yeah.
Well, the lights blink on and off for a bit, and then the photo changes again. Is it possible that Bill could come back from the dead? And the better question is, does she really want him to?
Careful what you wish for.
Yeah, that's all we're going to say. It's short and it's really creepy. It's got a bit of the monkey's paw vibe going on there, but it's a well-made film and the effects are well done.
Yeah, they were.
And it's so short that it's barely even a story, but what is there works well, and it's a lot of fun. Yeah.
So overall, a thumbs up
Yeah, very much. Yeah.
from both of us.
It's 3 minutes, so it won't hurt to go look. Yeah. All right, and then we have another
Telltale.
short film.
The Telltale Heart.
It's a bit longer, more to this one.
This is my second favorite telling of this story that I've ever seen.
What's your first favorite?
It was a stage production done some years ago. And
Okay.
A live stage production that was really, really excellent.
You're not going to see that
And
one. So if you want to see one, this would be the one.
This was also really, really excellent. I mean, my second favorite of all time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Telltale Heart, this year, 2020. Directed by McLean Lindquist, starring Sonny Grimsley, James C. Morris, Taryn Turner, and Micah Olson. 22 minutes. And there's a link to IMDb below where you can watch the film when it's released.
Highly recommend this one.
He's still got some distribution things going on here, so I can't tell you where to get it right now, but you click on the link, you'll find it. So you did like it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, the narrator asks us to see how calmly he can tell the story as we flash back to see his crime. Now, we all know the famous Edgar Allan Poe story already, and this is that story. It's not loosely based on or anything. It is the story. So the spoilers here are unavoidable, but it's still fun.
Yes. Very
We see the narrator caring for an old man. He loves the old man, but the old man's freaky, milky eye really bothers him. So at night, he sneaks into the old man's room and just watches the eye.
obsesses over the eye.
Who's the creepy one
The
now?
eye. The eye is watching him.
Watch me sleep. Don't
The eye
watch
never,
me sleep.
The old man sleeps, but the eye never does.
Yeah. Well, it disturbs him more and more as he imagines all sorts of terrors behind the evil eye.
He's kind of nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not kinda.
Yeah.
So he eventually snaps and kills the old man. But will he get away with his crime? It is the perfect crime. Until it's not.
Until his guilt does him in.
Yeah. So with a story this well known, the fun is in the way the story's presented.
And I thought that was really neat how they did it in this one.
Yep. Yeah, the whole dramatic structure of this story is the author's descent into madness, and Sonny Grimsley pulls it off really well. The effects, pacing, and editing are all very modern, and it's hard to look away for the length of the film.
Yeah,
it's a long short, but it's really well done.
Mm-hmm. And I think that you're going to... Oh, I see you're going to bring that up in the next paragraph.
It's
Okay,
interesting that
so I
the
will let you
narrator
go.
has a cheesy English accent and does dialogue straight from the Poe story. It's another one of those Renaissance fair accents.
Well, no, it was better than that.
All
but,
right.
But
he's the only one. The detectives and everyone else speaks normal American English. And yet he's doing all this flowery Poe talk.
actual lines from the
Yeah,
Poe story.
yeah. He's like quoting the book.
Yeah, and then a lot of it was updated to modern.
Yeah.
Well, it was set in modern day, but his speech and the yeah.
He dresses in the old style. He speaks in the old style. But the two
and he's using
detectives
accent.
and everybody
I
else
recognized
is
some of the
completely
actual
modern.
lines from the book.
Yeah.
and it was neat. Yeah, but then modern cops, modern detectives trying to solve the crime. The old man disappeared. Yeah.
Yeah. The cinematography is really sharp, very high resolution, the copy we saw. And the effects are great too. The old man's rubber face is a little sketchy, but it's not too bad otherwise. They really paid a lot of attention to this. Even the credits and the soundtrack are really good. Watch this if you're a Poe fan. Watch it if you aren't. But either way, it's way better than getting buried under the floor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very much.
Speaking of buried,
What's that?
old time radio.
Oh, yeah.
You guys interested in old time radio?
You should be.
I am. Yeah, because there's some good old stories that way. Just so happens, I've got a pair of books here.
2 books about that.
It's going to be that kind of episode, you can tell. First one here is the Old Time Radio Listener's Guide to Dark Fantasy. And this is a show that ran for just about a year in the 1940s, early 1950s. And it's not strictly horror, but it's mostly horror. Out of I'd probably say 95% of them are very short horror stories. And in here we've got the synopses of each episode, the reviews. It's a lot like one of the Horror Guys reviews. If you like the Horror Guys blog, website, and you're interested in old-time radio, this is kind of the same thing.
And Box 13.
And there's another one, Old-Time Radio Listener's Guide to Box 13. And Box 13 is a sort of a mystery series that came out in the 50s also. Starred Alan Ladd. And there are a lot of good stories now. I think that ran exactly a year, 52 episodes. But if either of those have any interest for you at all, get them at the same place as Tales to Make You Shiver, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, any of those kind of places. Ebooks, paperbacks.
Collect the whole set.
They're all good. And there's another one in the works right now. But we'll talk about that another time.
Yeah.
Speaking of talking about another time,
We saw film noir.
oh yeah, we did.
Horror noir, not film noir.
Horror noir.
Horror noir, which was a history of black horror.
Yeah.
A documentary kind of compilation sort of thing.
Yeah.
Where they have many clips and they talk about many black actors, directors, people in the business.
A lot of interviews.
Their take, and people, scholars who study film, and very interesting. Yeah.
Very well researched.
Yeah, it was.
Okay,
yeah.
so the whole name is Horror Noir, Noire, A History of Black Horror. Came out in 2019, and it's available on...
Everywhere.
Where did we see this? Was this Shudder or was this Amazon?
It was Shudder. Yeah.
Okay.
Saw it on Shudder.
Yeah,
Okay,
there's a
it's
link
not
in the
at-
show
not
notes.
everywhere.
There's a link in the show notes. You can pick up the DVD from Amazon. I think it's included in Shudder if you're part of that.
Yeah, that's where we saw it. Yeah.
Directed by Xavier Bergen, written by Ashley Blackwell and Danielle Burrows, stars Miosha Bean, Ashley Blackwell, Robert R. Means Coleman. Hour and 23 minutes, and it is full of clips.
Mm-hmm.
Did you like it?
I did. I thought it was fascinating, and a lot of clips I'd never seen before of movies.
I'm
that
making
I
lists
hadn't
of
seen.
movies that we need to see.
Yeah, some we had certainly, but others like, wow, that looks good.
Well, on Horror Guys, we've been focusing on the Universal films from the 30s and 40s. We jump up to the Hammer films of the 60s, and we try to carry mostly the newer ones other than that. Mm-hmm. The 50s and the 70s are big holes in our listings right now. We haven't watched any of the stuff from the 50s, with the exception of Creature from Black Lagoon today. Mm-hmm. And just a few special ones from the 70s. And there's a lot of stuff here from the 70s.
We'll catch up.
We'll get there, yeah. We're running out of Universals. We're not that far from running out of Hammers.
Yep.
Something else will be coming along. Well, anyway, this documentary traces the history of black people in film through various interviews and commentary from experts. It starts out very early, showing clips of white men in blackface in the 1920s film Birth of a Nation, which I have not seen.
No, I have not.
Really want to, because it is very historical. And it actually heavily promoted the KKK as a good thing.
And President Wilson?
I think it was Wilson.
Advocated what a great movie it was. And like, ew, you Klans guy.
It's just a little dated at this point.
I didn't realize he was so Klanny and so racist. Yeah.
I think back then it was probably good for your political career. It was a much more...
widespread and...
acceptable?
I
think probably was
certainly a lot
acceptable.
more acceptable
yeah,
than
the
now.
people were doing it, yeah.
Yeah.
Not really a secret either.
Yeah.
Okay, well later the film The Son of Ingaji from the 1940s was the first black-made horror film, and it's also got a black woman as a mad scientist who cares for an ape man in her basement.
But here was, not only a black person, but a woman who's a scientist. And
how does that happen in the 40s?
Yeah, they were talking about wow, it was a wow thing. First time for
mad scientist, but still kind of a role model there. So yeah, if she can do it, others could too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the film did a lot to normalize black people and show that they weren't all the stereotypical tribal types that were shown in horror films before that point. And there's clips of King Kong and the drummers and the tribal. Yeah, African type, African tribes people. That's about all you ever saw before this one.
Yeah, well, like you say here, they played servants or tribes people or comedy relief, over the top.
Yeah.
Scared of their own shadow kind of characters.
And we've seen some of that in some of our old Universals.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's servants, tribal people, a lot of comedy relief types. And they had no serious roles. Then there's a lot of discussion here about monsters and aliens being metaphorical stand-ins for black people.
Which I had
King
never
Kong
thought of.
And the creature from the Black Lagoon are both shown at this point.
Because there were no black people in these movies, and so the creature or the alien or whoever was the other, the culture was still there, but without the black person, this was a stand-in for white people being
They
afraid
specifically
of this
say
other,
that the creature from the Black Lagoon was metaphorically a black person.
And King Kong, and going after the white gal.
I'm a little skeptical on this one. I don't think they intended anything like that.
It seemed a little bit of a
You
stretch.
could probably read that into it, but
I wasn't that
stretch.
convinced on that point.
Yeah. Then came Dwayne Jones in Night of the Living Dead in the 60s, which
Holy
had
crap.
a black man as the central character.
And he's giving white people orders and telling them what to do.
And he punches
he's being
one
a
at some
hero.
point.
Yeah, wow.
Doesn't work out so well in the end for him, but up to that point, he's doing pretty good.
They talk about what a huge thing that was at that point in time. And
Yeah.
First time that,
There's been so much said on that one, we're not going to go into it, but yeah, that was a super influential film at the time.
Well, and the director was saying he didn't even plan initially for it to be a black man.
He didn't write it that way.
He was the best actor that showed up, and he thought, oh, why not?
Yeah.
And went with it.
And Night of the Living Dead would not have taken off or been anywhere near as popular.
I think it made a huge
if it
difference.
hadn't worked out the way it did.
Yeah.
And then the 70s show up with the blaxploitation films,
Blackula,
which is notorious for being over the top and very low effort films. But they did still manage to make some money.
Oh, they kept making money, so they kept making them.
Yeah. The reason why they made them.
They were relatively cheap to make, and they made enough, or the studio as a whole. Some of the movies didn't, but they kept cranking them out.
Yeah. And the most successful of these is, of course, Blackula, which had a crazy amount of influence, just probably about as much as Night of the Living Dead did. And they talk about Blackula, Scream, Scream, and there's one other one. I've got them all on order, so we'll be seeing them soon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we will.
And these films did manage to push the idea of black directors and black film creators as well. Mm-hmm. I know I've seen Blackula. I don't know about the sequels.
I have seen just like
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Then we advance into the 80s, where the token black person always dies first.
Yeah,
and this is such a trope, they go through dozens of examples.
And one of the guys, what was it, Friday the 13th he was in?
Maybe.
Yeah, where he was, and people laugh at him, because you were the first person to kill it, and it's like, well, yeah, but I was in, and were you? No. So shut up.
It's better to be there and die first than not be there at all.
He was still in it. It was still a role and still a job, and yeah.
Well, these black actors are compared to the red shirts in Star Trek. They're there to die. Mm-hmm. And apparently the sacrificial Negro is an entire trope. Most recently seen in Annabelle 2014.
They're there to help the white people.
Alfred Woodard, her entire purpose in that story was to die at the end. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the other big trope is the magical Negro, which can be seen in lots of things, and probably the biggest one is The Shining.
Uncle Remus and
him too, yeah.
South. Well, they mentioned other movies that weren't necessarily horror. They focused on horror, but they threw in some other things too.
These tropes have been in all the different genres, not just horror.
Yeah.
And then the 90s came along with Candyman, and that turned things around again, creating lots of new African-American filmmakers and more prominent black actors in horror films, such as Tales from the Hood.
And then they even talked about Candyman a little bit. That was even kind of a trope where, the big masculine black man going after a white gal. That's was an ongoing trope, and that was kind of in Candyman too. And
It was one of the scare factors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
yeah,
Then the 2000 where the rappers hit horror films, many of which for some strange reason all ended in the letter Z, like Wolves and Vampers.
Vamps.
Yeah, things get a lot more serious than with The Girl with All the Gifts that came out a couple years ago. And that had a little black girl as the main character and the hero of the story.
That was a good one.
And then they spent a lot of time with Get Out, that has a black hero who actually survives to the end of the film.
Yeah, and the director of that, they interviewed him quite a bit,
Yeah,
talking
yeah.
about his movie and other movies.
What influenced him.
Yeah.
I think that's probably what influenced the entire documentary, was talking to him.
Yeah.
And then the documentary ends on a positive note with Get Out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so there's
And
lots.
other things coming.
Yeah,
You know, and more people of color getting into the business and making more and more stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's lots of clips from the films mentioned, and although they're all famous films, got to admit there's a lot of these I haven't seen. I'm pretty familiar with the films from the 80s and onwards that they talk about, but I don't know much about the ones from the 70s. There really weren't any black characters of any significance in the Universal films that we've been talking about.
Just a few of the tropes.
A
here and
few
there.
of the
Yeah.
servants in the background occasionally. Yeah. With the horror guys, us, we focused on the early days of Universal horror and the 60s with Hammer and modern age stuff. We've tended to skip over the nuclear age 50s horror as well as the 70s blaxploitation type horror. And we'll definitely be covering these eventually once we run out of the Universals, which isn't too far off.
Yep.
Yeah, they're just eras we haven't worked on yet. We're not ignoring them, and I'm kind of looking forward to seeing some of them.
Yeah.
So this documentary is a great overview of the timeline of black horror and focuses on a few major releases from each time period, from the 1920s up to whenever Get
Modern
Out
day.
4 or 5 years ago. And it's a lot of fun seeing how these completely unrelated films tell a story in their timing, acting, and time periods.
Yeah, what was going on in the culture and the
Yeah.
society at that time.
Overall, it was very cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely worth seeing. You should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So have we watched a more recent movie recently?
Yeah, we saw In Fabric from 2019.
Yeah, In Fabric.
British film.
Made by the BBC.
British horror.
Directed by Peter Strickland, written by him also. Stars Sidney Babbitt Knudsen, Marianne Jean-Baptiste, and Julian Barrett. Hour and 58 minutes. Link in the show notes to pick up a DVD, Blu-ray, or watch it online. Did you like it?
Yes, very much.
Okay.
Don't know if I understood it, but I liked it.
I'm very neutral on this one.
Neutral. Okay, I'm much on the positive side of neutral. I liked it.
Okay.
I liked it more than disliked it. So, yeah.
Well, the late "You who wear me will know me" is a quote from the film. It's the label on the dress. Mm-hmm. You who wear me will know me. Yeah,
And they do.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Well, Dentley and Soper's department store is having a sale. Sheila sees the ad on her tiny 1980s era TV. Her ex-husband has found himself a new girlfriend, which gets her depressed. Even her son Vince is getting sex, but she's doing without. She decides to get back into it and starts answering newspaper classified personal ads. Now, you young people, Google it. See that that's a real thing.
Personal
it happened.
ads.
People did
in
that.
the newspaper. How
Yeah.
quaint. Yeah. Did you mention who? You didn't mention who his girlfriend is.
Oh, Vince's girlfriend is
Brianna, Lady
Gwendolyn Christie from
Yeah.
Game of Thrones.
from Game of Thrones.
She's like 9 feet tall.
Oh, she's
3 heads above everybody else in
she's
this.
she's a big girl. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's really good in this.
Yeah. So anyway, Sheila starts thinking about dating again, and she gets an answer to her ad and decides that she needs a new dress. The old one has literally gotten moth-eaten. Well, she buys this long red dress from Dentley and Soper's after the strange saleswoman there talks her into it.
And the saleswomen are strange in this store.
Oh yeah, they are.
Yeah.
The odd woman is really excited by selling the dress and couldn't be much more creepy if she tried. It's all very mundane and boring, but the woman's strange attitude shows it that this is, in fact, a horror movie.
Yeah, there's weirdness throughout.
Yeah, it's just needlessly weird. There's weird.
I like that.
You go to the store, you
That's
buy a
what I
dress,
liked.
and you go
Yeah.
home, and this is just about as creepy level of that as you can get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like this part too. That evening, the shopwoman takes her wig off, and now she looks like a mannequin, even though she acts like a witch as she crawls into the dumbwaiter.
Which is kind of like open to
Goes down into the
interpretation.
basement or something, yes.
Yeah.
Sheila goes on her date.
But as we learned in the movie The Witches, all witches are bald.
Yeah.
So,
She didn't have a long nose like in The Witches, though.
No.
Otherwise,
she
she'd fit right in. So Sheila goes on her date, and he's kind of a loser.
didn't. Yeah.
When Sheila gets home from her crappy date, she finds that she's got a rash from the dress. Always wash clothes that you get from a thrift store. Except
It
this
wasn't
was
a
new.
thrift
Except
store.
this
It was
was
brand
new.
new. Yeah. Luxury department store.
Yeah, they should be better than that.
Yes.
In the morning, she finds the dress in the wrong closet, and she blames Vince's girlfriend, who wouldn't fit in the dress anyway, because she's huge. Back at the store, the shop lady comes back up the dumbwaiter in the morning. She sleeps in the basement or something.
Yeah.
Sheila puts the dress on in the washer, and the washing machine literally shakes itself to death, taking most of the bathroom with it. Yeah, it's rough. Sheila then gets a lecture from her boss about her weak handshake, while the shop lady has sex with a mannequin while an old man watches.
And those two, yeah.
They're
Yeah,
kind of back
yeah.
and forth.
And those two bosses are like right out of Office Space.
Yes, they really are, yeah.
Yeah, that's just
Yeah,
weird.
we'd like to talk to you about
Yeah,
your
about
handshake.
yeah, you're doing a great job, but we need to talk about your handshake. It's not forceful.
And they show up a couple of times with their little things.
And they actually have a diagram that a worksheet on how to shake hands, and if you'd like, we can do some role play, or and no, I'll just take it home and practice at home. She's like,
Yeah.
very Office Spacey. They're just the weird bosses. Yeah.
Well, Sheila goes back to the shop for an adjustment on the dress and learns that the model from the catalog who wore that dress previously had been recently killed in an accident. Sheila then goes out on another date, this time wearing a black dress. The red dress then crawls around the house all by itself, and it tries to smother Vince's girlfriend in her sleep. A little later on, a dog attacks the dress as Sheila carries it home. The dog rips the dress to pieces, but later on it looks just fine.
So it heals itself.
Sheila then has a car accident and dies, caused by mannequins standing in the road.
And this is the point where
This is the point where it
me.
lost me. Yes.
Lost me a little bit. It wasn't really about Sheila. It was about the dress.
Yeah. This is the part where I didn't like it anymore.
It got weaker for me too. Yeah.
Everything up to this point I strongly recommend. Is a great 1 hour movie.
And I was a bit surprised, like, we're
In
going
the second hour.
We're going on without the main character.
Yeah.
Okay. There's half a movie yet.
They spent a lot of time introducing the characters and situations and
getting to like her.
and it was good. Mm-hmm. And then they kill her and we move to somebody else.
Yeah.
All right, so the dress ends up briefly in a secondhand shop where it's bought as a gift for Reginald, a boring repairman who's having his
Bachelor party.
bachelor's party.
Yeah. They buy it as a prank.
Gag gift, yeah.
gift. You got to wear the dress at your party and get drunk. And yeah.
It's a nice looking dress, so he gives it to his fiancée. The next morning, he has a rash and puts the dress in the washing machine. Well,
And
not surprisingly,
Again.
the machine blows up, but since he is a repairman, he fixes it.
And another point too that they make, Sheila and the girlfriend and the boyfriend, they're all different sizes. The dress fits you no matter what size you are.
Yeah, it does. It adjusts
Yeah.
itself. Mm-hmm. So the machine blows up, but since he is a repairman, he fixes it himself. This gets him fired because I guess it's a union rule or something. You can't do that.
Well, he did work related.
Yeah.
On the job, fixed for his own personal machine. Yeah.
The boss then chews up and swallows his ID card. He's like, he doesn't say you're fired. He's like, give me your card.
Everybody's a little bit weird in this movie. Everything they do is a little weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, a few months later, Reginald and his wife are now married, and he dreams that the new wife gives birth to a baby who is born wearing the red dress.
And the doctor is the guy from the dress shop, and the three
Yes.
nurses are the three sales ladies. And,
Yeah.
Yeah.
By coincidence, the wife goes back to that clothing store to try on another new dress, and the old dress, jealous maybe, causes a riot, a fire, and quite a few injuries and deaths there, including her. Meanwhile, Reginald suffocates when his furnace starts spewing out CO2. As the shop lady rides the dumbwaiter down to hell, we see the various deceased former owners of the dress working on sewing new dresses. The end.
And then at the very end, though, you see the dress in the ashes of the fire is perfectly fine, whole again, and somebody picks it up.
Yeah.
It continues on. Yeah.
Well, just from the initial music and credits, this gave off an instant 1970s film vibe. Something about the music and just the slightly graininess of the film, very and 1970s.
The TV commercials. And, Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just during the credits, even it's like, was this made in the 70s?
Yeah.
It looks like it was.
They did a good job recreating that.
Yeah, even like a TV movie from the 70s. Turns out the film actually does take place during that time period, so that part of the movie was really well done. It put me right in the right frame of mind almost immediately.
So there's there's not the modern, super modern tech. There's not cell phones. And
no computers, no
and
cell
all that.
phones. Yeah.
She's a bank teller, and it's kind of mechanical, and the department store uses the tube delivery
pneumatic
system.
tube, right?
Yeah, pneumatic tubes. They don't do that so much anymore in stores. Yeah.
Well, Sheila and her issues were interesting and had a lot of dark humor, but when the short story shifts to Reginald, you may as well turn this thing off.
It wasn't that bad, but it does change.
There are some funny bits here and there in the second half, but mostly I didn't like the shift to an entirely different story. It was abrupt and annoying, and part of the joke was that Reginald puts everyone to sleep when he starts talking, but honestly, the whole story did that for me. It's almost as if they had two completely different directors for the first and second half, but they didn't.
No.
It's like an anthology film almost, but not really. You know, it was it the Red Violin or the Dollar Bill or something?
The Red Violin.
Whatever it was that went from
Following It
hand
Through Time.
Yeah, exactly. Like that, only bad.
And then you find out why the violin's red at the end.
Yeah. Well, the shopwoman's accent was really hard to understand. She wasn't British. She was putting on some kind of accent. Maybe it was even made up.
Yeah, I vaguely.
Yeah.
Generically foreign.
Yeah, and she had a strange way of speaking, which only made it worse. I'm sure her words were relevant to the story, but I couldn't make out half of it. I would recommend watching this one with subtitles turned on. I watch a lot of British stuff. My favorite show is Doctor Who, but this woman was something else. I mean, yeah, I don't know what that accent was.
It was weird. She was weird.
Yeah, it was hard to understand.
They were all weird, yeah.
So, thumbs up from you?
Yes, very much so.
I'd give it a serious 5.
Oh,
maybe on the 4 side. I wouldn't want to watch it a second
I'd give
time.
it more like a 7.5 at least.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're a little divided on that one.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
that's about our show, eh?
That's it. Yeah, thanks for joining us. Stop in during the week at thehorrorguys.com. Where you can find links to various books. So get ready for next week, where we'll be watching some more classics. We'll begin with Dead Birds from 2004. The Scars of Dracula, also from 1970, same year as Taste the Blood of Dracula. We'll also watch The Color Out of Space from 2020, and The Truth About Demons from 2004. We'll be sure to sneak in another short film or two.
You betcha.
Till then, we'll see you next week.
See ya.
Bye.